We are here to pay tribute and to share our final respects for a giant of a man, Dr. Lee Weisberg, Leib Ruvain Ben Yaakov, personal family friend to me and to so many others here in this room, a devoted and beloved husband for over 60 years, a devoted and beloved father to Michael and Kim, grandfather to 7 very special grandchildren, 3 great-grandchildren, and a special sibling to his brother Shelley, his brother Murray of blessed memory, and his sisters Anne, Amy, and Wendy, sisters-in-law Holly, Audie, and their families, nieces and nephews, and all those who are gathered here who are inspired by Dr. Weisberg. He was a man who had very strong and humble convictions. He was on a very special, unique journey. Much like Abraham, our patriarch, Avraham Avinu, he was someone who lived by those convictions and followed his heart and his soul, and at the same time never lost respect and dignity and love for all those in his life, even if they did not share those same convictions. To know Dr. Weisberg was to be inspired by him. We're going to recite 3 chapters of Tehillim of Psalms in his memory, translate them into English, and recite them together in Hebrew as well. These 2 Psalms very much encapsulate the man that he was and the way he lived his life. First is Psalm 1 and then Psalm 15. And each of these Psalms, King David, who was someone who lived a life, he had tremendous, incredible milestones and accomplishments, and also some unbelievable challenges. And throughout everything, in times of joy, he turned to God with gratitude, and in times of challenge, he turned to God with faith, and he would compose a psalm. And these 2 psalms specifically, King David refers to the soul print of a man who is righteous by virtue of the fact that he or she uses their God-given unique talents and life circumstances to be the best version of themselves and to make the world a better place through their own unique journey, using and leaving a beautiful soul print on the world. Happy is the one who has not followed the counsel of the wicked, nor stood in the path of sinners, nor sat in the company of the scornful. Rather, that one's delight is in the Torah of Hashem, meditating in God's Torah day and night. He will be like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in season, whose leaves will not wither, and whatever he does will prosper. For the Lord loves the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked is lost. Please join us in Hebrew. Ashrei ha'ish asher lo halach be'atzas rishayim u'v'derech chatoim lo yomad u'v'moshav leitzim lo yoshav kim b'soras adonai cheftzoi u'v'sorosoi yehege yomam v'loyla v'haya ke'etz shasul al palgei mayim asher piryo yitain be'itoi v'alehu lo yibol v'chol asher yase yatzliach lo chen harishayim kim kamoitz asher tidfenu ruach al kein lo yakumu rishayim ba'mishpat v'chatoim ba'adas tzadikim ki yodea adonai derech tzadikim v'derech rishayim toved. A psalm for David. Hashem, who may sojourn in your tent, who may dwell on your holy mountain? One who walks in purity, does what is righteous, and speaks the truth from his heart, who has no slander on his tongue, nor has ever done harm to a fellow, nor cast disgrace towards a neighbor. One who does these things shall never falter. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai mi yagur ba'alecha mi yishkoin bahar kodshecha, Hoylech tamim u'fa'al tzedek v'dover emes bilvavai. Le'ragal al l'shaynoi le'asa l'ri'ehu ra. V'cherpa le'nasa al kroivai. Nivze be'enav nimas ves yirei Adonai yechabed. Nishbal laharav le'yamir. Kaspe le'noshach lasam beneshach. V'shoichet al naki le'lokach. Oise elu le'yimait le'olam. And together, Psalm 23, verse in English and in Hebrew, a song of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even when I walk in the valley of darkness, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. Mizmor leDavid Adonai roi lo yachzor. Binois deshe yarbitzeni al me menuchos yinahaleni. Nafshi yeshovev yancheni b'maglei tzedek leman shemoi. Gam ki elech begates al maves le'ira ra ki ate imadi. Shivtecho mishantecha hema yinachamuni. Tarech lefanai shulchan neged tzoreroi dishantav Hashem en reishi kaisi revaya. Ach toy v'cheser yerdefuni kol yemei chayai v'shavti beveis Adonai lo'erech yamim. We're going to call upon different family members to share words of recollection and eulogy. First, we're going to call upon Dr. Weisberg's son, and then son-in-law, Michael, and then Brian.
You never think you're going to take the walk to talk this talk. I told my kids, it's hard to believe that Hashem didn't bring Mashiach before Saba left this world. He wanted to see him so badly. But then I was thinking that the Mashiach for Hashem is his family, is to see his family together, to see his family with him, to see what he never thought could be. My father told me that he got everything he wanted in his life. He never prayed or davened for money. He only prayed and davened for children and grandchildren and shalom bayis. And he said, Hashem, you gave me everything and more than I ever asked for. I wanted to, and this is not a time to say thank you, but I wanted to thank my mother for your dedication to him, your respect for him, especially over the past year specifically, but the past 25 years have been a lot of hardship, a lot of ailments, a lot of difficulties, and sticking by him, and the love that you had with Saba, and what Kimmy and I saw in our home. I only wish that I can put that into my home, and to my grandchildren's home, and my children's home, and that's what Saba would have wanted. That's what Abba would have wanted. There's a custom to say, ask your parents' forgiveness. And I can hear my father saying, Michael, what are you talking about? Forgiveness. I had a chavrusa with my father every night. I think since I became religious, we learned Torah every night. At the end of that Torah session, which is about 5 minutes, he always said the same things to me. Michael, that was so fabulous. And Michael, thank you for being my son. Abba, thank you for being my father. I couldn't have asked for anyone to love me more, to give me more, to care for me more. You made me feel like I was your everything. I could do no wrong. Thank you for being my best friend, my mentor. I can give testimony here that I never raised my voice to you. Not because I wanted to, but I didn't. I never entered my mind. You had so much respect and love for Mom. It was always about shalom bayis. Everything was about shalom bayis. Peace in the home. If there's peace in the home, you have everything. He did everything for that mitzvah, shalom bayis. He loved you, Mom, more than anything. I think we've heard the word mar more than any word over and over again. But there's also a mar that we say when we learn Gemara, Amar Mar. That word is a word that Rav Yisrael Salanter says. It means my master and my teacher. And Yisrael Salanter says that it actually means Hashem himself. That when you learn the Torah, an anonymous Amora, an anonymous Tana, it says Amar Mar. It means HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. Because we have to remember when we're learning Torah, it's God's Torah, it's Hashem's Torah. And we have to remember when we're living our lives at home, we're taking that Torah with us in our homes. And every time he said Mar, there was a hint to Hashem in the home. There was a hint to Torah in the home. And the source of peace and the source of Torah is all Hashem. As the Torah finishes, the Torah Shabbal Peh finishes, Hashem oz li'amo yitain, Hashem yivarech es amo b'shalom. And the Rambam says that the whole purpose of Torah is shalom. I named my first son Shalom because that was your theme. That's what the Torah is all about. That's what we're here for. We end davening Hashem yivarech es amo b'shalom. We daven and we learn for two reasons. For shalom within ourselves, for shalom in our families and our relationships with people, and for shalom with Hashem, whose name is Shalom himself. We just had a military service. My father was in the Navy, a captain in the Navy. In Vietnam, during the years of Vietnam, he did not go to Vietnam, but he was in Waukegan, Illinois during those years. And he was a captain. But he was really our captain, the captain of our ship, and we lost our captain. So how do we go on when we don't have a captain? How do we sail this ship? I know he's sending down the rope, the life preserver from Shemayim, whenever we need him, whenever we pull out our hand, whenever we put our eyes up to the Shemayim, I know our captain is going to be sending the life preserver. I had this list to be a pediatric dentist like my father. When I walked into the funeral home today to be with him, to say Tehillim with him, one of the people here at the funeral home said, "Your father was my dentist. He was so kind to me." When you're a pediatric dentist, you usually need to use nitrous oxide for children. They're very difficult to work on. My father never used nitrous oxide. So I asked him, "How is it possible that you could work on these kids without nitrous oxide? Because I can't." He said, I just tell them how good they are. I tell them how sweet they are. I tell them what a good boy you are and how good you're doing, and you're so brave. And I can't believe how great you're opening your mouth. And I can't believe that you're getting through this so well. And over again, until the kid believed in himself, and he just did it. And he did that for us too. He did that for us too. My father was also a deeply religious man. He became what's called a Baal Tshuva, a master of Tshuva, someone who returns to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, someone who returns to Hashem. It was extremely important to him to incorporate Torah and mitzvahs into our lives. And doing so, he gave me Torah and mitzvahs also. He gave my sister Torah and mitzvahs also. And he gave our family Torah and mitzvahs also, which is the greatest gift that we could ever imagine. When we were at the end of life, we were zocheh to have a Shabbos together, and he was nifter Erev Shabbos, 1 hour before sundown. So when I talked to my Rosh Yeshiva told me that there's a Gemara that says that Meis Be'erev Shabbos, Simin Yafalo. If someone passes away Erev Shabbos, it's a very good sign. It's a good sign. But he told me it doesn't necessarily mean that a person dies Erev Shabbos. It means that a person is alive Erev Shabbos, and if he feels that he's dying to get to Shabbos, he feels like he's going into a different world when Shabbos comes. He can't wait for Shabbos the whole week. That's Meis Be'erev Shabbos, Simin Yafalo. There's no greater sign in a person's life or how he's connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is how much he loves Shabbos. Shabbos said over and over again, we got to get Shabbos into our kishkas. We got to get Shabbos into our kishkas. He couldn't wait for Erev Shabbos at Kimmy's house having a little extra cholent. He couldn't wait to go into that airspace. And Hashem took him right before Shabbos in my mother's arms. And my mother said those beautiful words, go to God, go in peace. I just want to be Messiah. That there's so many things. It's so hard to do this in such a short time. Such a rich life, such a beautiful life. How he touched everybody. The Mishnah says that the greatest character trait of a person is a leiv tov. His heart was golden. He saw good in people. He wanted to connect to people. He wanted to see the good in people. He didn't look for bad. He didn't see bad. He had an ayin tova. He looked for good. It's an incredible character trait. He gave his heart to everyone that was in touch with him. We all have a piece of his heart inside of us. And we know the Torah says, Rahmana libo, the Torah wants your heart. He gave his heart to the Torah. He gave his heart to Hashem. He gave his heart to his people that were the closest to him and the people that he was had encounters with in his life. I just want to finish with two things. So many things to say. But one is that he used to say many times that what happened to us in our family, becoming religious, the marriage of Kimmy to Brian and me to Rachala, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren, is an open miracle. It's not a hidden miracle, it's an open miracle. So when my daughter and my wife came to visit, and at the last 2 days, it was the last time that he had some lucidity, and he looked at Rachala, and he said, Bookman, Bookman. Those are the last two words that he said, Bookman, Bookman. So I was thinking why. So Saba always davened that I should find such a wife that would be able to carry on his name. She was the bookman that made Weisberg have a kiyum. She was the bookman that allowed his name to keep going. He brought her to me through his tefillah. And when he said to me that a boy from Orange High School marrying a girl from Yavna High School is a bigger miracle than the splitting of the sea, he really meant it. It is. But you have to be willing to see the miracles. They're always open for us to see if we want to see them. V'kol yom nisecha imanu, we say every day in davening. Every day, if we want to see them, miracles are there. And I just want to be Messiah to finish this with. My father, when he was growing and trying to become more observant, there was times of hardship and opposition. But really, the opposition wasn't from at home as much as it was from the society at large. It's very difficult to incorporate the values and the beauty of Yiddishkeit into a world that doesn't necessarily accept it. So one day in our field where he used to take his walk every day, he told me that he was talking to Hashem, and he always talked to Hashem. And Kimmy and I, when we walk through life, we talk to Hashem because he talked to Hashem. And he said, Hashem, I can't do this alone. You got to take my kids and you got to throw them. You got to throw them closer to you. You got to throw them closer to Torah. You got to throw them closer to mitzvahs. And my sister told me something I didn't know about this story. He said, Hashem, it's non-negotiable. It's non-negotiable. Now that you're in Shemayim, a lot of your kids, Klal Yisrael, all of your kids, all of Hashem's kids need help. We need to get out of here. We need to go home. We need you to tell Hashem it's non-negotiable. We need a geula. I love you, Saba. I love you, Abba. I should be zocher to live a life like you did. Say at the end of Shiva, Bila hamavis l'netzach. There should be no more death. Macha Elokim. Macha Elohim. Hashem will erase all iniquity. He'll erase everything that's pulling us in the wrong direction. He'll erase richuk, halavavos. When there's dima al kopanim, when we shed a tear, a true tear, and know that anything can change in your life. Miracles can happen. We should be zocha to see Mashiach. B'mher v'yameinu, amen.
So my brother-in-law is correct. This is not necessarily a time for thank yous, but this is not an ordinary person we're talking about, and I would be remiss because he would want me to say thank you to everybody here for taking the time to be here. He loved everybody in this room tremendously, and if you are here, you have to know that. And I just wanted to also start by making sure, because that was what my father-in-law was about, to thank all the medical providers over the years who did their best to make him comfortable, help him, and especially over the last year, 2 years, where it was incredibly, incredibly difficult. I want to call out Dr. Lazar, Dr. Koifman, Dr. Ordenstein, who went above and beyond, taking out of their personal time to go visit my father personally at his apartment, responding to texts at all times of the night, day. It was just incredible self-sacrifice, and on behalf of the family, we thank you. I also wanted to thank, on behalf of the family, Emmanuel and James, who both helped us tremendously at the house over the last year. They gave of themselves as if Saba was family to them, and my mother-in-law was also to them. And we want to just thank you. It was a tremendous service you provided, and it comforted all of us to know that you were there day, night, whenever we needed you. My daughter, Eliana, wrote something that she asked me to read, and so I'm going to read it. These are her words. Dear Saba, I am so thankful to Hashem that I was Zocha to have you as my grandfather. I am beyond grateful for everything you did for our family. About 2 weeks ago, I was talking to you and asked what you thought about something. You said something I'll never forget. Why does it matter what I think? It only matters what HaKadosh Baruch Hu thinks. You were a living example of someone who lived Al Kiddush Hashem. You spoke to and treated everyone with the utmost respect and love. I will miss you more than words can describe. I will miss coming to your house on Fridays to bring you cholent, and you telling me, Eliana, this is the best one yet. I'll miss Tuesday nights eating popcorn and dancing with you. But most of all, I'll miss seeing you with Grammy. You two are a unit. It's always been Grammy and Saba. I'll miss seeing you look at Grammy and telling me you're the luckiest man in the world to have married her. I'll miss seeing you laugh together and say stories from high school. I'll miss you asking me constantly, where's Mar? When will she be home? Everyone knows Grammy and Saba had a beautiful marriage, and everyone should strive to have a marriage like theirs. They respected and loved each other beyond what seems possible. Saba, we will miss you forever, but your legacy will forever be here. We will forever try to make you proud and live Al Kiddush Hashem just like you did every day. I love you, Saba. So there's always a difficulty when in a challenge, I feel, and I'll try to be Mekatzer, that in giving a hesped, I think with somebody like my father-in-law, such a towering individual, words constrain. They don't necessarily tell the whole story, right? You say one word and then it misses necessarily another part. There's many aspects to great people, and my father-in-law, there's so many aspects of things to talk about. You could talk about his amunah in Hashem. You could talk about his davening. You could talk about his care for other people, for patience, many aspects of him. But we're only gonna focus on one or two things, because this really would require 5 or 6 or 7 hespedim to really cover all the multiple aspects of what made my father-in-law so great. The thing I'd like to focus on most is how his impact on people was so great. How do you do that? Right? A lot of people smile, a lot of people say hello graciously, but with my father-in-law, I think when you said hello to him and you had an experience with him, it was a different level, right? It was something that was almost beyond this world of an experience. It wasn't just a physical hello. It was something that carried you throughout the rest of your day. Some people met my father-in-law maybe once or twice. I remember at my brother-in-law's Ufruf, we all went in to Muncie, and his happiness and joy, and when he would speak to Rebbeim and people we met in Muncie, I remember afterwards some of them were like scratching their head like, how can I make my avoda like him? I mean, he is so happy. He loves Hashem so much. He loves his son-in-law. He loves his, I understand why they're scratching their head there, but he was dancing. Every moment was cataclysmically good. It was a spectacular moment, right? I mean, we all experience spectacular moments once or twice a year. My father-in-law lived every moment in the spectacular. How did he do that? So one of the things, I adored my father-in-law. I called him Abba, and he was. I call my mother-in-law Ima. She is. It's been one of the greatest privileges of my life. I don't know what I did to be zocha to this. It must be a gilgul of some tzaddik, because whatever I did to marry into this family, something didn't go exactly right. But anyways, I'm in. And but it was the greatest pleasure to be with him and watch how he interacted, because we interacted with all types of people together, whether they were 3, 30, 90, rich, poor. It didn't matter. The experience, again, every experience he had with a person was super beyond this world. It was something more physical. It was actually a ruchnius experience that he had when he would interact with somebody. And so I was thinking about it, how he's always been able to capture those and have those impactful moments with people. And I honestly believe that my father-in-law saw, whenever he looked at another person, he saw there's Selam Elokim here. We all know people are special. When you run into somebody at the grocery store, you have so much on your mind. You have so much to do. And we all have busy and important things to do. But for my father-in-law, seeing another human being was the most beautiful, experiential thing you could have. So anything else from his mind, you're going here, you're doing this, you got to call somebody. That person, he looked into their eyes and they said, this is something beautiful. This is Selam Elokim. This is going to be an experience. I am going to make sure this person, do they need simcha? Do they need chizik? Do they need a hug? What do they need that I could give them in this moment? It's almost as if he carried a chuppah around him, all around, and whenever a person came within his dalet amos, you were with him and under a chuppah. You were with him as somebody that everything in his mind was invested in you, and it was because he saw how important every human being was on that deep level of where we're all made in God's image. And when you look at a human being, when they're made in God's image, and you feel it, and it's hergish, and it's inside you, it seems simple that we would all live in the spectacular every time you interact. But like any of life's tests, it becomes hargul, it becomes repetitive to say hello to people, but not for my father-in-law. I mean, literally every time I saw him, we lit up together. I mean, there was when I first met him, it was love at first sight. I mean, it was instantaneous, and I honestly believe it was that special nakuda of really understanding the nature of a human being is Selam Elokim. In fact, it reminds me of my Rosh Yeshiva once. There was, I think, OU or somebody was coming to Eretz Yisrael with a bunch of people, and they asked, I think it was Rav Moshe Shapiro Alav Shalom, can we take these people on tours of, different areas, or should we just, what should we do with these people to be most impactful? And so Rav Moshe Shapiro said, well, if you want to see the most beautiful thing in the world, it's another human being. Come, take them to the Gedolim. Take them to all the special people that live here. Those are the sights. Those are the things you need to have. If you want to have an impact, you want to truly understand what beauty is, it's another human being. And my father lived his life that way. I know everybody here experienced it that way. I'm here to also give Adis that it never was old. No matter how many times I saw him in a day, no matter how many times we spoke on the phone, every moment was spectacular. And that spectacularity, when you have two people who are together, and my mother-in-law, she looks like a human being, but she is not. She has wings underneath her dress, and she flutters around the apartment. She's an angel. I'm here to let everybody know, but there is the marriage that my in-laws have was something I had never seen before in my life. I've never witnessed two people who, and she was a mirror image of him. She understood also all these concepts of depth and a human being, the beauty. The way she treats human beings is exactly the same. And her personality with her kaichos, exactly the same. But in their marriage, and I think, and I wanted to speak about this was the other aspect I wanted to speak about, because I think both tie together, and they're both something we can all take from this experience, is that, you know, you think in a perfect marriage where there's so much simcha and there's so much love, and when people are talking to each other, like, it's almost unrealistic with both the content and the tone of every conversation is with divrei na and divrei nachas and just sweetness and just, you know, all the superlatives you could think about all the time. You're like, well, they're not being real. They're not talking about issues where they disagree, or that was not the case at all. There were deep conversations. There were of course there were disagreements. These are real, even though there's an angel and you know, there were real disagreements, but the disagreements were done with the most utmost respect, with the most total listening, complete, active, focused. What is this person saying to me? How can we resolve this? And over 60 years of a marriage, you know, it created something that the rest of us, again, I feel like it's been one of the greatest privileges of my life to have an Ima and an Abba where I've been able to just learn and just not only have a relationship, but truly learn how it is to properly treat a spouse, how to properly treat another human being. And I've never witnessed it anywhere else where it was done, where both the verbal, nonverbal, everything was done to just, you know, it's like reading the hilchos of marriage in the Rambam. Honor your wife more than you honor yourself. My father-in-law would never, ever think of doing anything. Everything was thought out, anything that might be hurtful to my mother-in-law. And it was the same as vice versa, and I'm just so thankful. I'll be Messiah and try to end with this. I was with my mother-in-law in the room when my father-in-law, my mother-in-law was saying her last words, and when it happened, I couldn't get any words out as I was sitting next to my father-in-law, and all I could think and all I could say was thank you. I think I sat there and cried for 10 minutes and said thank you. All I could say was thank you. I couldn't verbalize anything else, and I thought about it afterwards, because when you're able to have a connection to somebody like my father-in-law, who was just the patriarch of our family, was just in every bit way just such a special avoda of his life. The karas hatov that I think we all have to Hashem is that, as sad as it is that he's gone, he's not. He everything that we gained from him, and we now have to take all of that and move forward and continue his legacy. But the Hakaras Hatov again is beyond words. Lastly, I also want to just mention that my over the last several years, to watch not just the perfect marriage, but the perfect caretaker. I really hope it runs in the genes. But my mother-in-law, the way she took care of my father-in-law, I mean, I heard the word mar over the last year. It was like ringing out of our ears. But I understand why he was calling her, because when you have an angel coming to your side every time you need something, who has patience beyond, where nothing is a problem, where everything is an opportunity to help the other person, where there's always a smile, where there's always a humor, where there's always grace, where there's always something special. That's why he kept calling her, and it was just to, Saba would want me to thank you, especially publicly, that it was just that avoda was incredible. And my wife, with her wings, she fluttered around, coming almost daily. Saba would want me to thank you, that it was just with you two, and then with Michael and Rory coming in, and the grandchildren. He lived for you, and the care and the love you gave back was an incredible avoda, and, thank you. Like Michael said, Klal Yisrael, Saba, please be invited to Yeshua for all of us, that we should see the Geula Shlema B'Mehem V'Yaminenu.
Before I call upon the grandchildren, I have to say, listening to Brian and Michael's remarks, even if only a fraction of what they're saying is true, it is literally in the presence of giants, and I'm so humbled and honored to be here and to hear all of these incredible stories and character traits about Dr. Weisberg and Mrs. Weisberg. And I just want to encourage everyone, when we're inspired, to take a little bit of that inspiration home with us, bottle up a little of that greatness that Dr. Weisberg lived by and Mrs. Weisberg continues to teach us by example, and may it be a source of inspiration for us in our Jewish journeys, and as we emulate the ways of Hashem as Dr. Weisberg did, with acts of chesed, acts of loving kindness, and if we take away some of that inspiration and decide we want to bring a little bit of that home with us into our daily lives, that will be the greatest source of nachas, of pride, of elevation for his soul as he ascends to his eternal resting place in heaven. I'd like to call upon, on behalf of all the grandchildren, in this order, Yaakov, and then Yehuda Meir, and then Mendy.
"11 years ago, in my bar mitzvah speech, I shared a story about my grandfather, my Saba. That many years beforehand, he had decided to stop working on Shabbos, and that his practice would not be open. This was obviously a massive sacrifice, being the fact that Saturday was his busiest day. But that made no difference to him, because he loved Shabbos. He loved Shabbos so much that when he would go to Israel, he would say good Shabbos to the taxi drivers, and it would only be Tuesday. And the driver, for all likelihood, was Muslim. But that didn't matter, because he loved Yiddishkeit and loved Shabbos. You see, Shabbos is different than every other mitzvah we have. It's unique. We refer to Shabbos as the Shabbos Kala, the Shabbos bride, and there's special mitzvahs like the Kavod Shabbos, to honor Shabbos. It's different, and that is because it has a neshama, it has its own soul, Shabbos. There's a ruach to Shabbos, and Saba felt that ruach. You see, the same year that Saba stopped working on Shabbos was his most profitable year. The same way Saba looked after Shabbos, Shabbos looked after him. And the story continues, because the Gemara, the Talmud in Ksubis says that someone who is nifter, someone who passes away out of Shabbos right before Shabbos, is a siman tov. It's a good sign. And the reason for that is because the one who passes away right before Shabbos, Shabbos is waiting to escort you, to be malavi you from this world to the next, from Elam Haza to Elam Haba. It is no coincidence that Saba passed away moments before Shabbos began, because the same way Saba was Meiser Nefesh, gave up so much to keep, honor, and love Shabbos, Shabbos returned the favor and was waiting to greet him and escort him from this world to the next. I had a special schus not just to be his favorite grandchild, but also to be a chavrusa. We had a chavrusa shaft. We were study partners and we learned Gemara together. We started when I was in 7th grade and continued to learn all the way through my high school years and into Beis Medrash, where we learned together in Telz Yeshiva. And there were times that he would come out to learn with me, and we would be sitting in the back of the Beis Medrash, and he would start crying, not just tears, but crying like a baby. And I would be like, Saba, pull it together, we're in public. But he would turn to me and say, Yaakov, you don't understand. 30 years ago, I came to this Beis Medrash. I would daven and cry in front of this same Aron Kodesh, in front of this same Ark. And I would say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I would say, God, I want to get me and my family closer to you, but I have no idea how. I need your help. And now I'm here 30 years later, sitting with my grandson, learning in front of this same Aron Kodesh. He couldn't control himself. He was overwhelmed with emotion. You see, this past week we celebrated the Yontif of Purim, the holiday of Purim. And the Megillah Esther, the Purim story, happened over a span of 9 years. Throughout those years, there were many events that took place which seemed like they could go either way. And by happenstance and coincidence, they turned out the way they turned out. By the end of the Megillah, by the end of the Purim story, you come to the realization that the salvation, the Yeshua of Klal Yisrael, only happened because Hashem was pulling the strings during those 9 years, orchestrating a master plan in order to save us, which is called a Nes Nister, a hidden miracle. When Saba broke out in tears on the back of the Beis Medrash and tells, it was because he saw his own Nes Nister. He saw his own miracle. For 30 years he would daven, he would pray with all his might that he and his family would become closer to Hashem, and that he was able to see in his own life the fruition. He was able to see how the small events in his life all played a role in the bigger picture of a master plan orchestrated by Hashem, and that's how he lived his life. In every event that took place, in anything that happened through all his years, he would always say, it's for the good, that's the way Hashem wants it. May Hashem be a Meled Seisher, be Shemer over us, my family, over Klal Yisrael, and he should bring the Geula b'mheir v'meinu, amen.
About 200, 300 years ago, there was a Rebbe. His name was Rebbe Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev. And he was someone that when he saw a Yid, that's all he saw. He saw a holy person who just wanted to do good. And Saba was the same way. All he wanted is all he saw, no matter if he wore a black hat, no black hat, white shirt, whatever you did, he loved you. He loved you because you were you. He loved you because you were a Jew. And that's why when Yaakov gets up here and he says, I'm the favorite grandchild, it's because it's true. Every single person feels like they're the best grandchild. Saba was my favorite friend. He was my favorite. I was his favorite. He was everyone's favorite. He loved everybody. He made everyone feel so good. And I just want to thank you, Saba, for being the best grandfather anybody and his grandson could ask for. And thank you for loving me and loving everybody. Thank you.
want to start off. My wife wrote some words. Shoshana wrote some words for me to say. Saba, thank you for teaching us by example of what living really looks like. Anyone who came into contact with you, you made them feel like somebody. Thank you for instilling core values together with Grammy, molding the strongest and most beautiful daughter, who I'm honored to have as my mother, my mommy. Thank you for being the best Saba to Eden, Mendy, and I. I promise to continue to make you proud. I love you, Saba. Shoshana. Saba. I'm lucky that I was able to know you and to be a part of your life for the few years that I entered this family, this amazing and incredible family. Saba, every time that we walked into the apartment, you would ask us the same things, and you would tell me the same few things. You would ask me how my family is doing. How's my mother? How's my grandmother? You would tell me how proud you are of me and of our family for what we've done, for how we're living our lives. And you would ask me where the baby is. No matter how much she was running around, you'd ask me where the baby was. A few days ago, Saba, and then gave you the last kiss when you were laying in the bed. We're going to miss you, Saba. We love you. And we're going to miss you so much.
I'd like to call upon Dr. Weisberg's brother, Shelley, who would like to share some reflections of his older brother, Lee.
Well, I was given the task of talking about Lee, his first 17, 18 years, and I was given 2 minutes to do it. So I will talk quickly. Of course, to me, Lee was my big brother. And from when I was about 2 years old and was pushed into the same room with Lee and our brother Murray, I basically stayed in the same room with them for the next 17 years. And that's accurate. We were in one room with 3 beds for, perhaps 10, 12 years after that. And then we were moved to our 3rd floor of our house, where it was more or less, again, into one room. And to Lee, as he often told me, the best part of growing up was with the 3 boys in one room. It was not an age where every child was supposed to have their own room and supposed to have their own television. It didn't work that way. We had very little to speak of. I can't think of anything. I think we had a telephone. That was about it. But we spent a lot of time together, and that was the best thing. Now, how do I go beyond just the words of saying Lee was a great big brother? And I can give you hundreds of illustrations, but I'm only going to give you one, and then as this day goes on, if you want more, I'll be available to give you more. Picture Lee as a 16-year-old. I was 11 then. And he would go off and have a baseball game. Well, he knew I wanted to go play, and I couldn't play with the big boys. He would be a big home run hitter, and I could barely get the ball out of the outfield. So what would he do? He took me anyway. And all the boys that were there, I was the only little brother there. No one else was taken care of as Lee took care of me. And so he'd get me into the game somehow. I'd play a deep right field or catcher for both sides, and I would have a great time. And that's the kind of thing they would do. He would think about me as a big brother and do nice things. So in growing up, what were his, I was trying to think of his favorite thing and the thing he disliked the most. Well, what he disliked was easy. That was where we worked at the West Side Market. He hated it, Murray hated it, I hated it. And so what did he turn that into? That was part of his motivation to go to dental school. He did not want to inherit the stand at the West Side Market. He didn't want to work there. And so instead, he became a very prominent pedodontist. So that's how he turned the bad to good, as I see it. And what did he like the most is really, he told me many times, it was the three of us living together in the same room. So what other people would think would be something of a disadvantage, he thought it was a really good thing. And that extended to family. He always liked family. Family liked to see him. He liked to see family, both family by blood and by marriage. So people always got the idea that Lee wanted to see them, and the good thing was he did want to see them. So they saw him as he was. So again, as the day progresses, if you have any questions to me about us growing up, I'll be happy to answer them all.
On behalf of the rest of the family and all the nieces and nephews, we'd like to ask Jordan Berkowitz to please share some reflections.
I have to apologize ahead of time if I start smiling, because just thinking about Uncle Lee, I think, puts a smile on most of our faces. So I apologize for smiling at a funeral, but Lee Weisberg, Lev Reuven Ben Yaakov, was so many things to so many different people. He was a devoted husband to Aunt Marla. We heard about that today. He was a patient father to Michael and Kimmy, a caring brother to Murray and Shelley and Wendy, my mother and Amy. He was a beloved grandfather and great-grandfather. He was also a Navy veteran and a trusted pedodontist. But to me and my group of cousins, he was just Uncle Lee. Uncle Lee had an amazingly easy laugh, and it came pretty often when you saw Uncle Lee. He had a sweet demeanor and an infectious smile, and he really was an easy person to love and to look up to. And I think all of us in this room understand why that is. As Jews, we know that there's no such thing as a coincidence, and that there's meaning to be found in everything around us. And as people already mentioned, Uncle Lee passed away right before last Shabbos. And most of the folks that came up here spoke about Uncle Lee's connection to Shabbos. And they also mentioned the Gemara in Kesubis that also teaches that passing away on Erev Shabbos is a special sign, because the transition of the neshama to the ultimate rest is happening at the same time that we transition into the rest of Shabbos. Now, Uncle Lee's commitment to Shabbos was deep, and it was a significant part of his Yiddishkeit. It wasn't an easy thing for him to take on, and yet he did it. And it should be no surprise that both last week's Parsha and this week's Parsha focus quite a bit on Shabbos and the special relationship between the Jewish people and Shabbos. And it includes a pasuk, and we say that pasuk every week in Kiddush. V'yishamru b'nei Yisrael es ha-Shabbos la'asos es ha-Shabbos l'dorosam b'ris olam. And that translates to, the children of Israel shall keep and protect Shabbos for generations as an eternal covenant. And as I was sitting in shul this week and hearing them laying that, I think about the ways that Uncle Lee showed us, by example, how to be committed to our Yiddishkeit. And I was recollecting about, why was Uncle Lee so special to myself and to my cousins and to so many in our community? And I want to give a few anecdotes about Uncle Lee. But when I was young, Uncle Lee used to come over every Friday morning and drop off fresh challahs from Unger's and sprinkled donuts. And I remember looking forward to that every single Friday. And I know, being a little bit older, it was because he wanted to share with us a little bit of why Shabbos was so special. Something I looked forward to every single week. And as I grew older and got close to my bar mitzvah, Uncle Lee and Aunt Marla gifted me my tefillin. And they gave me the classic little Medrash says. I think most of us that are around my age know that sefer. And Uncle Lee tested me on the Parsha, on Parsha Shmini, and he gave me $10 for every question I got right. So that was something that made such an impact on me, right, that he valued Torah so much, that he was trying to inculcate in me the values of the Torah. And I still wear those tefillin every day. Uncle Lee, you filled the role of patriarch in our family. You led Seders. You said Kiddush on Friday night in Zion National Park. I think some of the older cousins may remember that trip. You invited family and friends over to Tashlich at your house in Hunting Valley. And I remember Frisco, the black lab, eating all the challah we threw into the creek every single time. We did it, and she always ate it. And I remember walking on Teva Trail beside your house in the woods on Shabbos morning, heading over to the only other Shomer Shabbos family in Hunting Valley who happened to live next door. And I remember you practicing the bracha that you would say under my chuppah for literally hours, even though you had it down cold. Thank you for that bracha and being the quintessential role model for Shalom Bayis in our lives. You showed us how much of an impact one person can have on a family and a community and Klal Yisrael. And I hope we can live up to your example. We love you.
Before we conclude, and we're going to then ask Mr. Jeff Bookman to come forward to recite the Kelmali Rachamim memorial prayer, and Mrs. Weisberg is going to read a poem that she composed. I want to just conclude my remarks with a story. Our sages tell us of a man who was summoned to appear before the king. And he was very nervous because he didn't know what the king wanted. He'd never been to the palace. And some of his close friends and even his relatives said to him, listen, we'd love to help, but the most we can do is we can escort you to the main road or maybe even to the palace, but then you're on your own. And he didn't know what to do. He was very nervous, and then he met a few acquaintances who said, you know what? We'll take you all the way into the king, and we will advocate on your behalf. And our sages say this is a metaphor for the life that we're privileged to live. Our material possessions, we can't take them with us. Even our family and loved ones and friends, they can only go so far. They can come and escort us until the cemetery. What comes with us and advocates on our behalf are all of the mitzvahs, all of the good deeds that we performed during our lifetime. They are our advocates. They are the sparks of light that will be there to represent and advocate on our behalf. And I'd like to conclude by my personal message to Dr. Weisberg. Leib Ruven ben Yaakov, you have an army of advocates that are leading the way for you. And our tradition is that the soul of the deceased hovers over the grave, hovers over the casket until the burial, and is listening to every word and is advocating on behalf of not just himself, but all of us in this room. May all those tremendous sparks of light and angels that you created through every mitzvah that you performed be an advocate, a melitz yosher, for you, for your devoted and beloved family, your wife and children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, for all of us here, for all of our families, for the entire Jewish people, for all of humanity, and may we see the completion of the journey that you began with so much love, patience, tenacity, and compassion and humility, and may we all be able to see the ushering in of the era that you worked so hard to bring closer. Umacha Hashem Elokim Dima Me'al Kol Panim Amen. This is Weisberg.
Thank you all, every one of you, for being here. It wouldn't be fair or right, maybe fair is the wrong word, to not give a special shout out to my beautiful family, but right now to Kim, who gave 15 years ago the opportunity of having Saba with us for all this time. She gave him a kidney, for anybody who doesn't know that. And thank God it was a successful experience, one that we all are thankful for every single day. And as sick as he was, it wasn't from that beautiful kidney that caused him to have the end of his life. So my dear, beautiful daughter, thank you. And now I just want to read a poem that I wrote a long time ago. For people who know, I write silly little poems all the time. And this one was written about the time that Lee retired. And it's an analogy about the road he took every day, River Road, where he went to work. And every day he would come home and tell me how beautiful it was and how lucky he felt that he had the opportunity to go to work in a place that could take him down that road. I really have to thank Dean Olson for telling him that he should put his office not far from his house, because you'll never have to move. And that was the truth. He stayed in that office for his entire career, except for a short period of time when his practice merged with a very dear friend of his, who was a pedodontist also, and it was a beautiful ride. So the name of the poem is River Road and Me. And before I read it, I just want to tell you that I made him go to the road sign so I could take his picture. So I have a picture of him on Chagrin River Road. I followed you to work, watching 120 seasons beautifully unfold, watching your colors transform each turn, while mine turn winter white, watching new homes be built, while mine had emptied out. I waited for many baby geese to slowly cross, many grandchildren to be born. I stopped to watch wild turkeys, to recover from surgery, to smell the blossoms along my route. I listened as the river rushed past and the time to retire drew near. Repaved, rerouted, remembered. It's been a glorious ride.
Thank you. Please rise for the memorial prayer. Kamali Rachamim.
I just wanted to say one small word. Lee Weisberg made a critical choice in his life. And in our polarized times, many times those kinds of choices lead to division in families. And it is a tribute to him and to the entire Weisberg family, the immediate family and the larger family, that choice was never allowed to separate them from the love they felt for each other. And the Weisberg family should be example, as Lee is their patriarch, for what would make this a better world. El Malei Rachamim Shoichein B'meroimim Hamtzei Menucha Nechaina Al Kanfei HaShechina B'malos Kedoshim Tehairim Kezo Mazirim Esnishimas Leib Ruvain ben Yaakov Sheola Wach Li Olamai Bavor She'anachnu Mispallim Biyad HaZekoros Nishimosoi Began Eden Began Eden Tiyei Menuchosoi Lochein Balorachamim Yastireyu B'Seiser Kinofov V'Yolamim V'Yitziror B'Tzror HaChaim Es Nishmasoi Adonai Hu Nachalosoi V'Yonuach B'Shalom Al Mishkavoi V'Noi Amen.
There are designated family members as the pallbearers. Please come forward. The Shiva will be at the home of the Farkases on East Carroll Road for the duration of the week.